Huh?
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, it looks like Paul's here as well. Welcome, Paul. All right. We find ourselves on Daf Nun Aleph Amid Beis. That's 51b, right at the Gemara. And basically, the Mishnah had previously told us that when it comes to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, there were all these remarkable things that anyone who never saw the Simchas Beis HaShoeva never saw a true Simcha in their lifetime. And the Gemara is now going to bring in a brisa which just elaborates on this idea, on this motif. Tana Rabbanan. Mish lo ra simchas beis hashoeva lo ra simcha miyamav. So this we already saw in the Mishnah, that if you never saw the simchas beis hashoeva, you never saw a true simcha in your life. Mish lo ra Yerushalayim b'tifarta lo ra lo ra krach nechva me'olam. If you never saw Yerushalayim when it was in its glory days, you've never seen a truly beautiful city or village, and a beautiful city. And a mishlo ra beis hamikdash bebinyano lo ra binyan mufor me'olam. If you never saw the Beis Hamikdash when it was its true height of its the best edifice, then you've never seen a truly beautiful building. Now the thing is, we know the Beis Hamikdash, even the second one, went through a different iteration. So Maihi, which iteration are we talking about? Amar Abai, v'yitim rachista. Zeh binyan hordis. This refers to Herod's version of the Beis Hamikdash that was built later in the Second Temple under the Roman occupation. B'mai binyay. So what did he do? What was special about his construct? Amarava ba'avne shisha umaramara. There was special different kinds of marble. Maramara, Rashi tells us, it's a weird thing to pronounce, is shaish lavan. That's a white form of marble. And ikeda amri ba'avni shisha kuchla umaramara. Actually, one of the marbles was blue. It was blue and white. And there was actually an interesting 3D element to it. Apik safa va'ayil safa kihehi de la sida, that some would go protrude and some would go in, and the plaster settled on it better in that respect. But also, savar lemeshai b'dahava, Hordis he wanted to plate it in gold. Amrle Rabbanan, Shafke, Dahachi Shaber Tfei. No, don't renovate it more. Sometimes the building's already beautiful, and to make other renovations on top of it will to supersede it. Sometimes don't if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So why? It looked like the waves of the sea. And the waves of the sea, I think some of the Mepharshim say that, the Torah is comparable to water. So in addition to the aesthetic appeal, there was a broader symbolism behind it as well. So
Rabbi,
yes, Phyllis.
I have a question. It seems to me as though what was more important was not the simcha of the Beit HaShoeva, but the simcha of the beauty of the building itself, and not the real simcha. I'm a little confused about that.
So I think for Simchas Beis HaShoeva, there was something about that ceremony. Now we could talk about what was special about it. That tzaddikim v'anshei Maisa were they were dancing in the middle of the circle. I mean, I think you're raising a good point, which is, I don't know, like sometimes you go to like certain weddings and there's like the sushi station and this cut of meat and that cut of meat. What was special about the Simchas Beis HaShoeva? But it seems to be more than just the edifice of the Beis Hamikdash, because you could see the edifice of the Beis Hamikdash in any day. But what you might be getting to, is we'll talk about at the end of this year, toward the end of the Gemara, is the renovations that were done for the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. So that might be what you're getting to, and that'll come up soon. So good point, Phyllis.
If nothing was ever mentioned, I would think the first Beis Hamikdash was just as beautiful as the second one, if not even more, because it was more special.
Actually, what it says is that at the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash, when it wasn't as impressive, there were two groups of people crying. The young people were crying that they got to merit to see a Beis Hamikdash in their lifetime, and the older people were crying that it didn't live up to the hype of what the first Beis Hamikdash was.
Oh,
So they were both crying, but for different reasons. And actually, we're gonna see two people crying for different reasons if we get that far in the Gemara tonight. So that's on
uh,
the Beis and Aleph. So
boy,
a
if I
different
was
crying.
if I was Hashem looking down, I would say, "What are you crying for? You have a Beis Hamikdash. How could you cry?"
Be grateful. Yeah, see, that's Jews. We complain no matter what. All right. So going forward, my friends, Tanya, another brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishalora Diyof Loston. You could tell that's a Greek word, which was the grand synagogue Shel Alexandria of Alexandria, Shel Mitzrayim, that was in Egypt. Lo Rabbi Shel Yisrael. You've never seen like the true honor of the Jewish people. Amru Kamin Basilki Gedola. It's like a big basilica. Stav lifnim mistav, and then there's a girsa change over here. Stav lifnim mistav, and then the girsa change is mistav ahayuba. Okay, it doesn't no major consequences. So that was one. I think it's like a row of chairs, one and then another one. I'm curious how they render stav in the art scroll.
Benches.
Benches. Okay, yeah, perfect. Sometimes there was 600,000 on top of 600,000. So it's kaflaim kiyotzi mitzrayim. That's twice the amount of those who left Egypt. Right? And remember those who were in the Erevin Shir a few weeks back. We talked about that, how it's an important number. V'hayuba ayin alav kisidros shel zahav. Keneged ayin av shel sanhedri gedola. There were 71 like thrones of gold that were Keneged the 71 members of the Grand Sanhedrin. And each one was no less than 21 kikarim of gold. That's a lot, I guess. Ubima shel eitz b'am siyasa, and there was this grand stage of wood in the middle. The chazan hakneses omeid ala. Now chazan, well, we say chazan, we mean a cantor, but here it just means like the gabbai. The gabbai of the Beis HaKnesses would stand on it, basudrin biyado, and he had these cloths in his hand. The kaven shegil anos amen, and when it was time to say amen, like right, you're hearing yiskadal v'yiskadash shmei rabba. So then it was so big that people were not able to necessarily hear when it was time to say amen. So they would wave this sudar, this cloth, mainif besudar v'chlam on amen, and we knew to answer amen to it, which is actually remarkable halachic point that this is the basis in the halachic literature that to answer amen to a kaddish or something else, lav dafka, you need to hear what is being said. You just need to know to answer at the right time. This is different from being, when it comes to shomea ka'ona, being yotze something as if I'm the one reading it, that won't work. But here, where it's just about answering amen, that's sufficient. So this is an important halachic source tucked away in what is otherwise an agadata. So, and it was very classist, if you will. Everyone sat with their own professions. Ukesafim b'fnei atzman, unafachim b'fnei atzman, uturasim b'fnei atzman, ukredim b'fnei atzman. The gold, what do you call it? The gold goldsmiths, and the silversmiths, and the blacksmiths, and the coppersmiths, and the weavers. They were all together in their own sections. Now, why was it just out of kind of a class system? Rather, ukesha'ani nichnasham, and when someone was poor came in. He recognized who was in the same profession as his. He would turn to that area. And he would, hand out his business card and he makes some connections, and that's how he would get a parnasa. Which it occurred to me that I don't know about you, but it sounds like it's implicitly condoning some kind of schmoozing during davening. That's what it sounds like. Maybe it's being descriptive as opposed to prescriptive. That might be the way we have to go with it. But I don't know what else to make of that.
Anything really here about davening? I mean, this almost sounds like a concert hall.
You
have to wonder why the Gemara would be going to such pains to praise something as being better than the temple. that was in Egypt. I mean, it
Right.
seems so contrary to everything.
I'm so glad you brought it up. And that point, Toby, essentially brings us to the next part of the Gemara. Amar Abai, v'kulakad flinhu, and everyone who went to this shul was killed.
Oh, great. Okay.
Dramatic pause. It says in our text of the Gemara, Alexandrus Mokdan, which refers to Alexander the Great, but it couldn't be him because this is much later. This is post Second Temple, and also Alexander the Great was good to us by our records. So it's a different one. It's the Hagos Hagra puts in Alexandrus Tarchinus. So a different Alexandrus. So why did he kill everybody? My time and Yishu. Why were we punished that we were killed by him? Mishum to Avya Haikra, we were transgressed the following pasuk. Lo sosivun lashuv b'derech hazeod. You shall not return to Mitzrayim. Now, if you look at the broader context of the pasuk, the next words are right. Lo yashiv esa Mitzrayim leman harbos sus. Right. So it sounds like you shall not go back to Egypt to collect more horses, to amass wealth. But the way we are reading it here is that you just actually no, sorry, and then you continue pasuk Hashem Amar Lechem. So it sounds like from the pasuk it's about amassing wealth, but actually the latter part of the pasuk teaches us you shall not go back to reside in Egypt at all. Whether you're going for a bit, there it sounds like not to amass wealth, but also not to live there, even if you're not amassing wealth. And what happened? Vinu Hadar. And these guys, they decided to resettle in Egypt after we have a whole holiday about getting out of there. Right? Vinu Hadar asu. So kiasa ashkechinu dahavu karu b'sifra. So when he got there, Alexandra Tarchinus, he saw they were all studying the Sifra, and they got to the pasuk of Yisa Hashem Alecha Goy Rachok, that it says in the Tochacha, I believe, in Devarim, that Hashem will bring a nation from afar to punish you. And then he says, Amar, there he says to himself, Alexandra Tarchinus, Michti, Ahu Gavra Boy Lemese, Sfinta Basara Yome. Generally, it would take someone to get here 10 days by boat. Dalia Zika, the wind blew. Va'asi Sfinta Bachamasha Yome. And then my ship arrived here, cut 50% of the time. I got here 5 days early. So maybe God's sending a message. I'm supposed to be that guy who exacts his vengeance upon his people. And what do you know? Nafalayo Katlinu. Look, that's what God says. That's what God says. So he killed out all the Jews of Alexandria. The end. Lovely story.
Right. So I still am questioning why the Brisa would go to such pains to praise this place and describe this place when it all just ended up as it did. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess you could say two things, right? The returning to Egypt was problematic, but the fact that they wanted to build a beautiful shul as an, isolating that element was praiseworthy. Yeah.
But weren't they supposed to only really want to make the temple beautiful?
This is we like to make a good shalom beautiful, this
right. All of that is like, is that praise?
To make the to make the Shema. We're if we don't have a base of Mikdash, we should do our best to try to make our shuls emulate the base of Mikdash, I would think.
So maybe I don't know my chronology very well. So, but when this place was built, so there was no base of Mikdash at that point. The second one.
I believe this is post temple at this point. I believe this is post temple. Yeah, pretty sure. This is post temple.
Following up on Toby's point, it sounds like the Tanaim were just upset with whoever managed the shul in Alexandria. So who ran these shuls that were chutz la'aretz?
No. I'm curious. Were you getting that they're upset with the operations of the shul?
That it even existed.
The only issue they seem to bring up just from the Gemara is that it existed in Egypt, but the shul inherently itself, had it not been in Egypt, was a very respectable operation. It's just that they decided to put it in the wrong place.
Who ran these shuls that were chutz la'aretz?
Um, there were
I mean,
Jews. I'm not
did
sure. You know,
Kohanim
it's
have any role whatsoever in this?
not to my knowledge. Um, not to my knowledge. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of historical work on the Jews of Alexandria.
They
Rabbi,
probably
I-
had a gabbai.
Go ahead.
They probably had a gabbai. 'Cause,
Well, yes, Hasanah Knesses.
I remember when I was in Egypt years ago, and there was a remnant of a shul, and there was a guy who was kind of like in charge.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You know, I mean, there have been Jews in Egypt. Think about the Cairo Geniza. You know, all that history that we have of Jews of living in Egypt. It's they were there. Rambam was in Egypt for some time as well.
Rabbi, can we just go back like a page, because I'm just kind of a little confused. I mean, all this stuff about Herod and how he built it and the stones this way and the stone, all that stuff. Again, I don't know my Tanakh all that well, but
Neither do I.
weren't there? I mean, we had gazillions of detailed instructions about the building of the Mishkan.
Yeah.
Weren't there detailed instructions somewhere about how the actual temples were supposed to be built?
Yeah. So very good. So Shlomo HaMelech gets instructions from God. And then the question, so this is actually an interesting question. I'm right now in Mishnayos Midos. So I was reading the Kahati introduction because there's not a lot of like lumdus and halacha there. It just explains, what the Beis Hamikdash structure looked like. But the big
Oh.
question is like, why should we bother studying that if when the third Beis Hamikdash comes, based on what we have from Sefer Yecheskel and other places, we have a different vision of what the third Beis Hamikdash will look like. So what advantages are to studying what the second Beis Hamikdash looked like? But it seems like the second Beis Hamikdash structure. I mean, there were certain elements which remain the same. In terms of I think how the altars operated, in terms of like you have a Kodesh Kodashim, but the broader architecture of you have the Beis Hamoked, you have this lishka where they keep the sheep, and you have this lishka where they prepare the bread. I don't know if that necessarily was specified. I think that kind of just developed on its own.
So was it in violation of halacha at that point? And is that why it was doomed to fail?
I'm not sure about that, but
And
because you
certainly, I mean,
bring up,
Herod elaborating with
oh, I see.
whatever. I mean,
So from here, it doesn't seem to say that, but something interesting. You're bringing up a question that's relevant to the next part of the Gemara, which is making alterations to the Beis Hamikdash. So we're actually going to see in a moment, because remember we said that they'd make special renovations for the Sukkah's Beis HaShoeva. So it's not so simple. How are they allowed to do that? So that's the next section of the Gemara. So this might actually touch upon what you're thinking about. So let's go. B'motzei Yantiv. My Tikkun Gadol, right? What was this major renovation they made for Simchas Beis HaShoeva? Amar Rabbi Elazar, Kodesh Shaninu. So by the way, this sugya here, super, super important. Keep this in mind, especially if you come to the Igros Moshe Shir, because after we finish artificial insemination this week, God willing, on Shabbos, the next topic we have is the Mechitza controversy. And this Gemara we're about to learn is the Locus Classicus. This is the Gemara where it all happens. This is the basis for Mechitza.
Wow.
So my Tikkun Gadol, yeah. So this is good. I mean, everything's good. My Tikkun Gadol. Amar Rabbi Elazar Kodesh Sheshaninu Chelka Haisa Barishona V'Kifua Gezutra. So sorry, Chalaka. It was smooth originally, but then they put like this kind of what do you call it? Like what's the word for it? I'm forgetting my English over here.
it says in the article a balcony.
Balcony, that's the word I wanted. Thank you. I was like trying to I was like thinking of like a running ramp and like what do you call that thing that protrudes out? Balcony. Thank you. That's the word I needed. Right. So there was so they had this balcony, this gazutra, which was coming out. The women would be on top in the balcony and the men would be below. Tanar Rabbanan. And here's a brisa that elaborates further on the history of this. Barishona, originally they were all on the same level. The women were on the inside of where things were happening, and the men were in the outer rim. But the men and women started mingling, and it led to frivolity. So then they reversed it. They put the men on the outside and the women on the inside. And it still led to frivolity. So So they put the women in the balcony and the men below. Heichi avid hachi. This is Toby's question. How could they do something like this? V'chsiv hakol b'chsav miyad Hashem alai haskil. Didn't we have explicit or general instructions? It's in Divrei Hayamim that Shlomo HaMelech was given instructions on how to build the Beis HaMikdash, and the second Beis HaMikdash presumably followed a lot of those principles. So how are we allowed to make renovations to the structure of the Beis HaMikdash? Amarav Kra Ishkachu Darush. There was a pasuk they found that justified this. V'safta haaretz mishpachos levad, mishpachos beistel levad, v'neshein levad. It says in Zechariah, right? Not every day we do Zechariah, that there was a eulogy being given, and all the families were separated. The house of David was on their own, and their wives were separated in a separate section on their own. Now here's the Kal V'chomer. Amru, v'halo dvarim Kal V'chomer. Ma la'asid lavo sha'oske behefse v'yitza hara sholi behem. In the end of days, when there is a funeral going on, and generally at funerals, that's not a place where we're concerned for volley is going to happen between the sexes. Amra Torah nonetheless, the Torah said men should stand in one section, women should stand in another. But now the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, which is more, more prone to frivolity, is the Simcha going on. The Yitzhara Shoiben, the Yitzhara can more easily grab the hearts of men and women. Certainly we should be careful in a place that's prone to frivolity. So I don't want to spend a lot of time now because this will be the shear that we're going to do. But suffice to say, Rav Moshe Feinstein has a very important tshuva in here. Now, oh man, how do I even start? There's so much information on this. Very briefly, one interesting thing that Rav Moshe Feinstein asserts is that we see from here that a mechitza is a chiyuv midoraisa, it's a biblical obligation. And we needed to find at least something midivrei Kabbalah to supersede that. It seems to be a biblical obligation to have a mechitza, and he argues in a shul during tefillah, it's the same as well. The other thing that he argues, though, that goes lahakel leniently, is that he believes, what's the concern in the Gemara? That there'll be kalos rosh. So for him, it's not eyesight that needs to be blocked from the men's section to women's section, as long as everyone's dressed sneakily, which is an important caveat. But rather, it's just that they can't reach over from one section to the other easily. So for him, a 60-inch mechitza would be sufficient. And the Satmar Rebbe goes to town on him. So the reason we're doing artificial insemination is because I want to get to the Satmar Rebbe going to town of Rav Moshe there. And he also went to town of Rav Moshe in the mechitza sugya. Those were his cause celebras against Rav Moshe Feinstein. So if this topic interests you, hopefully not this Shabbos, but whatever the next 10:30 shir I give, it will be that. So stay tuned, and we'll conclude over here for the evening. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos.
That's really good. Thank you.
What a great conclusion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Glad you enjoyed. Thank the Gemara. They decided to put it here. I just followed the order of the Gemara. All right, take care, Toby, Phyllis, Paul,
Well done.
Lonnie,
Thank you.
Oliver. Great seeing you. Have a good Shabbos.